was a really good invitation from the President. We've had a very productive and we've come to a strong position. I'm very pleased that we've had this.
Russian President Vladimir Putin has sent a scary ultimatum to NATO, threatening dire repercussions if British Storm Shadow missiles are stationed in Ukraine, as tensions around the world near a breaking point. The international community has been rocked by this severe warning from the Kremlin, and UK and US officials are now having urgent talks.
And it's really important to us, great allies, that special relationship.
As these talks attempt to balance the need to defend Ukraine with the need to prevent a full-scale military conflict with Russia, the stakes are quite high. Putin's defiant ultimatum, a crucial turning point. Putin's recent threat represents a pivotal moment in the ongoing conflict between Russia and Ukraine. On September 15, 2024, during a high-profile press conference, Putin issued a stark warning that if NATO moves forward with the deployment of British-made Storm Shadow missiles to Ukraine,
НАТО напрямую участвует в военном конфликте или нет? Если
Russia will interpret this as a direct act of NATO involvement in the war. This declaration not only heightens global anxiety, but also raises the specter of a potentially catastrophic escalation, including a nuclear response. The Storm Shadow missiles, known for their precision and long range, could significantly alter the battlefield dynamics by allowing Ukraine to strike deep into Russian territory. Putin's ultimatum underscores the gravity of the situation, as it signals a potential shift from a regional conflict to a broader confrontation involving major global powers. The Kremlin's aggressive rhetoric includes threats of severe retaliation, which could encompass a range of military responses from expanded cyber attacks to the possible use of tactical nuclear weapons. The international community is now grappling with the daunting task of navigating this dangerous new phase, where diplomatic efforts must balance the support for Ukraine with the imperative of avoiding a full-scale war with Russia. UK-US talks, navigating a diplomatic minefield.
Other parts of the world. This wasn't a meeting about a particular capability.
Central to this crisis are the intense and high-stakes discussions between the UK and US about the potential transfer of Storm Shadow missiles to Ukraine. These advanced air-launched cruise missiles, renowned for their precision and extended range exceeding 250 kilometers, 155 miles, would provide Ukraine with the capability to strike deep into Russian territory, potentially targeting key military installations, supply lines, and strategic infrastructure. This decision has plunged British Prime Minister Keir Starmer and US President Joe Biden into a diplomatic quagmire. Historically, the UK has supplied Ukraine with a limited number of Storm Shadow missiles, with an informal understanding that these weapons would not be used to target Russian soil. However, the prolonged conflict and mounting casualties have led Ukraine's leadership, including President Vladimir Zelensky,
and they moved very quickly because we didn't have equipment. Again, when we speak about equipment, how to equip brigades,
to intensify their calls for more advanced weaponry. Zelensky contends that Ukraine needs improved long-range capabilities in order to successfully thwart Russia's unrelenting military advances and to interfere with crucial Russian military operations. The necessity to strike a balance between Ukraine's pressing military demands and the possibility of the war turning into a direct battle between NATO and Russia further complicates the situation. As discussions continue behind closed doors, both the UK and US are weighing the potential consequences of authorizing such a transfer. The fear is that permitting Ukraine to use these missiles on Russian territory could provoke a severe response from Moscow, potentially igniting a broader and more dangerous conflict. The outcome of these deliberations will be crucial in determining the next steps in the conflict and the broader geopolitical landscape. Storm Shadow missiles, a double-edged sword. The Storm Shadow missile is a potent tool with significant strategic value.
During the ongoing conflict, it has played a significant role in neutralizing enemy targets, disrupting supply lines, and degrading hostile capabilities. Its high success rate and minimal collateral damage.
Developed by the UK and France, this air-launched cruise missile has a range exceeding 250 kilometers, 155 miles, and is equipped with advanced guidance systems, allowing for precise strikes on high-value targets like military installations, command centers, and infrastructure deep within enemy territory. In Ukraine's hands, the Storm Shadow could disrupt Russia's operations far beyond the front lines, potentially altering the course of the war. However, Its deployment carries substantial risks. The missile's range would enable Ukrainian forces to strike deep into Russian territory, which could be seen by Moscow as an attack on its sovereignty. Russian officials have already warned that using Western-supplied weapons on Russian soil would cross a red line, possibly prompting a severe response, including the use of tactical nuclear weapons. Furthermore, deploying these missiles blurs the line between defensive support and direct NATO involvement in the war. Putin has long claimed that NATO is using Ukraine to undermine Russia, and the use of Storm Shadow missiles could fuel this narrative, raising the risk of a broader confrontation. Western leaders must carefully consider these risks, as escalating the conflict could have catastrophic global consequences. Putin's red line: bluff or reality? The Storm Shadow missile is a powerful asset with strategic significance. Developed by the UK and France, this air-launched cruise missile has a range of over 250 kilometers, 155 miles, and advanced guidance systems for precise strikes on high-value targets like military installations and infrastructure deep within enemy lines. In Ukraine's hands, it could disrupt Russia's operations far from the front, potentially altering the war's trajectory. However, its use comes with serious risks. Striking deep into Russian territory could be seen by Moscow as a direct attack on its sovereignty, with officials warning that such actions might cross a red line, possibly triggering severe retaliation, including nuclear responses. Additionally, deploying these missiles risks blurring the line between NATO support and direct involvement. Putin has long argued NATO is using Ukraine to weaken Russia, and the use of Storm Shadow missiles may reinforce that claim, raising the risk of broader confrontation. Western leaders must weigh these risks carefully, as escalation could have dire global consequences. The stakes for NATO: walking a tightrope. While NATO has so far avoided direct confrontation with Russian forces, its support for Ukraine has already pushed boundaries. The West has provided substantial financial and military aid, intelligence sharing, and training for Ukrainian forces, effectively making NATO a de facto participant in the conflict. However, direct involvement through missile deployment would blur the lines between indirect and direct engagement. Russia's ambassador to the UK, Andrei Kelin, has warned that Western weapons used to strike Russian forces are already provoking a strong response. He cautions that any direct attack on Russian soil would trigger a swift and disproportionate retaliation. This raises the specter of potential Russian responses, ranging from cyber attacks to more aggressive military actions. Geopolitical fallout, global repercussions. The authorization of Storm Shadow missiles could have significant geopolitical consequences. China, watching how the West handles Russia's aggression, may view this move as a test of the West's commitment to defending smaller nations, influencing its approach to Taiwan. Additionally, Russia's allies, including Belarus and Iran, might react by increasing their support. Belarus could offer more direct military aid, while Iran, already supplying drones to Russia, may deepen its involvement. This escalation also risks straining diplomatic relations with neutral nations such as India, which may feel pressure to take a clearer stance as global alliances harden. The decision to provide advanced weaponry is not just a matter of military strategy, but one that could shift the balance of global power dynamics with far-reaching repercussions. A high-stakes gamble. As NATO leaders deliberate their next move, the risk of the conflict spiraling out of control is greater than ever. The decision to arm Ukraine with Storm Shadow missiles is not just a military choice, but a significant geopolitical gamble with the potential to reshape the future of Europe and the global order. Putin's threats cannot be dismissed lightly, and the coming days will be crucial in determining whether the UK and US choose to cross the line Putin has drawn. The stakes have never been higher, and the world stands on the brink of a potentially transformative and dangerous conflict.